and welcome to Season 7, Episode 3 of the F.E.C. Elizabeth Cookye Show. Today we are going to cover the King of Fighters' destiny and the acquisition of the S&K company by Leyou Millennium back in 2015. What they translated over from the manga, what properties they followed from the video games and the older movies by S&K, the similarities, the changes. We're going to go over that and put things in a proper perspective for all of you guys out there that spent the time to actually take and look at the King of Fighters' destiny on YouTube. Stay tuned. Okay, so let's just get right into it. Some time ago, in 2015, S&K was acquired by a Chinese company known as Leyou Millennium. They purchased this company, according to my sources that I've been doing my study, for $63.5 million, and it was an undisclosed settlement at one point, and after the settlement actually became confirmed, then it became public. Now, for all of us in the fighting game community, we know there have always been two factions. You either was an S&K fan or a Capcom fan, and for a lot of us, we remained both fans. Now, here's the deal. Leyou Millennium acquired the rights to S&K because they wanted to give this company similar to what they called the Marvel treatment. As you know, Walt Disney acquired the rights to Marvel, and that allowed them to create all these different movies such as the Avengers, Iron Man, Hulk, X-Men, Captain America, Wolverine. And the idea was to make individual movies from all the individual properties of Marvel and then join them together in a movie known as the Avengers. So if you've seen the Iron Man movie, Incredible Hulk, Wolverine, or Captain America, you know how they've managed to tell their separate stories in their own individual movies. Also Thor as well, I can't forget Thor. And then from there, merge all those different characters that show up in the Avengers in the collaborative movie while already establishing their backstory in separate movies. Leyou Millennium wants to do the same thing with S&K properties. And so this Chinese company is going to attempt to follow the Walt Disney standard in doing the same thing. Now, the only thing I feel is that they got close, but they didn't follow the model exactly the way Walt Disney did the same thing for Marvel. So my understanding of Chinese companies, especially in the past, is they have managed to do the live-action King of Fighters movie, which I had to write some of my notes down so I could get this correct. With the live-action King of Fighters movie, that was made by a Chinese director known as Gordon Chan, and he hired Ray Park to play the role as Rugal Bernstein, Bernice Liu played Vice, Maggie Q played Mai, Sean Ferris was Kyo Kusanagi, and Will Yoon Lee played Ayori Yagami. Now, they did focus on the Orochi saga somewhat, but then they went into a totally separate side story that had nothing to do with the Orochi clan. Ray Park, as far as I'm concerned, is an excellent actor, but did a horrible job as Rugal Bernstein. Bernice Liu did not look like Vice, and she wore outfits that looked nothing like the Orochi secretaries from King of Fighters. They chose a Caucasian guy to play Kyo Kusanagi, which Kusanagi is a Japanese last name, and they chose a Chinese person who's to play a Japanese role. The story was inaccurate. They didn't follow the plots correctly, and Maggie Q, who played Mai, was this main character who's from Fatal Fury series, acting as she's the headliner for King of Fighters. Now, with that being said, I already had a skeptical eye for the King of Fighters' destiny, which was being overseen by this new Chinese company, Leyou Millennium. So I'm just going to get right into some of the backstories, and then I'm going to cover King of Fighters' destiny. So, the pinnacle the pinnacle of S&K franchise is Art of Fighting, Fatal Fury, and then King of Fighters. Now, you have Psycho Soldier, you have Athena the Awakening, you have Metal Slug, you have Kizuna Encounter, you have Akari Warriors, you have all these other side games that eventually make an appearance in King of Fighters or sub-King of Fighters games along the way. However, to make things simple, the King of Fighters Destiny, the animation was 24 to 25 episodes, which was free to watch on YouTube and also on another channel. I can't recall what that channel is, but we'll just say YouTube to make things simple. And it was CG. Very good animation, very good quality. What I liked about the animation is that they left a lot of the original music from the video games, and they left a lot of the moves that you would do in the video games, and they translated it over into the actual animation. Now here's where things get sticky. The Art of Fighting takes place in this fictional world known as Southtown. So does Fatal Fury and so does King of Fighters. Southtown is a fictional town that takes place in modern day Tokyo. It's fictional, it does not exist. And in terms of what leads up into the King of Fighters storyline would start with Art of Fighting. Art of Fighting 1 and 2, and then into Fatal Furies 1, 2, and 3, and then into King of Fighters. Art of Fighting follows the three main characters, Ryo Sakazaki, his sister Yuri Sakazaki, and his pal, Italian martial artist Robert Garcia. Now, in the first game, Ryo is out to rescue his sister Yuri, who ends up getting kidnapped by Mr. Big from the request of Geese Howard, only to find out that it was a setup by his own father, Takuma, who ends up being Mr. Karate. So there's a lot going on in the first game. In the second game, that introduced the King of Fighters, Gaoro Densetsu, aka Fatal Fury, within Art of Fighting. So the second game of Art of Fighting is the sequel that begins the prologue to the King of Fighters Underground Tournament, taken over by Geese Howard, who was a corrupt police commissioner, become underworld crime boss. You learn a little bit about his story firsthand in Art of Fighting 2, and then it goes on into Fatal Furies 1, 2, and 3 through the new protagonists, Terry Bogard, Joe Higashi, and then also Andy Bogard, and then Mai Shiranui. Those are the main characters of that game. That's the stars and plot of that. And then at the end of Fatal Fury 3, you then go into the prologue of King of Fighters 94, where the connection between Geese Howard and Rugal Bernstein happened, where the rights to the King of Fighters story, or King of Fighters Underground Tournament, aka Gaoro Densetsu, has been taken over by Rugal, who is, an arms dealer and drug narcotics warlord who managed to get a little bit of power of the Orochi from Go-It Nits, which you'll learn about his side story in another plot. I'm saying all this to say that since Leyou Millennium wanted to do the Walt Disney standard for S&K properties, I felt what they should have did was cover all those separate properties individually and then bring everyone together in King of Fighters Destiny, because you would have already established their side plots in their own separate animation or separate movies. Now, King of Fighters Destiny is covering all these different separate plots in a 24 episode OVA. So they split up a piece of it to talk about the side story of how Ryo Sakazaki is out to rescue his sister Yuri Sakazaki from the clutches of Mr. Big. And then along the way, there's the infamous battle from the actual Japanese manga between him and King. This prolific battle, he fights this guy named King, in which at the moment he didn't even know was a woman. And that was the worst battle he had actually in the storyline. It was the hardest battle he had until he actually had to release his strongest move upon her. And that's when he realized he was actually fighting a woman and not a man. From this, they became friends from the conclusion of that fight, and he eventually promises her that if she joins him in the tournament, help her save his sister from Mr. Big, then with the prize money he would go and actually help King save her little brother from dying from this disease that he has. So there's a lot going on right there, and they don't really cover it well in King of Fighters Destiny, but they do a good job getting certain pieces out there in the open. So you have one piece that's covering that, and then you have another piece which is talking about the backstory between Jeff Bogart, father of Andy and Terry, and how he gets defeated by Geese because he won't release the Dragon Scroll to him, which was entrusted to him by Tung Fu Ru. So they touch a little bit of that. Then they touch and change another aspect of the storyline, which is Billy Kane's sister, Lily Kane. Her name gets changed to Evangelina, and she's the mistress of Geese Howard, and Geese Howard uses her as a trap to go and kill Terry, but when she fails to do so, she ends up getting killed. Now, in the original movie, she ends up getting killed by Geese Howard by getting punched out of a 5th-story window. Now, in this case, she ends up standing in the line of fire in the final match between Terry, Andy, and Mai, as they all end up having to go and jump Geese Howard with the help of Joe Higashi as well. I can't forget him. She stands in line of fire, gets hit, and that's how she dies. Totally different from the original movie. There's some things that they changed around from the movies and the manga, and some things that they kept. I can't reiterate enough how I hoped that they had separated those storylines, Art of Fighting, Fatal Fury, set that stuff up first, and then bring those properties into King of Fighters with Kyo Kusanagi, Benimaru, Nikaido, and then also Goro Daimon. So you have 3 separate stars of 3 separate video games sharing the same spotlight in one 24-episode OVA. And then they show a minor rivalry between Terry Bogard and Kyo Kusanagi, which there never really was a rivalry there at all, because at the time Geese Howard was already defeated, so he shouldn't even be showing up in King of Fighters 94 like that, with that much of a strong storyline. To show KOF's prologue for 94, it's all about Rugal Bernstein and how he wanted to defeat the strongest fighter so that he can add him to his statue collection. That's what starts off the Orochi saga for King of Fighters 95. They managed not to show any of that, but they managed to stay true to some of the aspects from the manga, the older movies, and the video game. So guys, tell me what you think. For all of you guys out there who happen to see the King of Fighters Destiny anime, what are your thoughts on it? What did you like about it? What do you not like about it? Leave your comments on this video. Let me know what you think. I'll be doing another follow-up video with Capcom properties in the future to talk about their storylines in depth. I will retouch over again in more episodes to talk about the Art of Fighting in depth and also Fatal Fury in depth. This was just light touching on these 3 properties because this is how it was presented in that 24-episode OVA. So let me know what you think. Leave comments on this video. And I'll be seeing you guys in the next episode. Stay good!